Namaskar, everyone. This is Pandit Hardat here. Welcome to our very first podcast. We take this opportunity to bring you discussions in your home, wherever you're living from all parts of the world, and to really make sure that we connect no matter where you are. This is our new initiative, my personal initiative to reach out to you from wherever you are in the convenience of your own home or wherever, to really bring you teachings, guidances, and all forms of discussions that can make you a better person and that can really enhance your life as a human being. With me today is my son Bhuvan. I think most of you know him already. He's going to be really doing not an interview, but have some interactive discussions, trying to understand what we're doing here. Bhuvan?
Sitaram, everyone. Thank you for that introduction. And today, this is sort of like an introduction for our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be asking a bit of questions on why you're really creating this podcast, what your goal is,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess where you sort of see yourself in the future with this podcast.
Absolutely, yeah. Go
So, the
for it.
first question that I have for you is what inspired you to make this podcast? And with so many podcasts out there covering, so many various topics, why would you choose to create one?
I think let's start with inspiration first, because what I'm truly inspired about is technology today. Technology used to be a thing known only to some, those who were graduated and those who had access to funds and all that. But and when I say technology, I'm not talking about the behind the scenes. I'm talking about devices. I'm talking about smartphones, iPads, tablets, computers that are accessible to so many people. In our tradition, as a Hindu and as a priest, there was a time when knowledge was really limited to a particular place, meaning you had to go to a temple, you had to go to a tent, you had to go to a particular place where there was a priest or someone who was, educated to give you something in terms of knowledge. And it meant that when you don't go there, you're limited. You're not getting anything. No sort of teachings are coming to you. And that, in my mind, can't happen in the time that we live in. That was acceptable in a time when there was no technology. Today, almost every senior has a smartphone. They have a computer or a tablet or something that they can connect with. And we see this by the kind of interaction they're having with us. Seniors, they are now connected on WhatsApp, so they can call people, through video and through voice calling and all that. So it is really um, different. It's a different time that we live in. I think it is amazing to actually bring this kind of discussion to everyone, including our seniors and our young folks, into their homes, into their cars, even if they're sitting on their couch, to listen to something that they can learn from. And, it will be interactive at some point in time. But I think what is fabulous about the time that we live in and what I'm truly inspired about is the fact that we can connect through technology rather than just waiting on a face to face interaction. I think using this type of discussion, or this type of forum rather, using this discussion will really enhance people's lives, give them something to do, something positive to listen to. There's a lot of junky stuff out there. There's the technology review and there's microphones review and all that, which is, a different segment of people will require that. But I think for our community and for those who are seeking something, higher, it is a beautiful forum.
All right, thanks for that one. My second question for you is, who is this podcast for? Who is your target audience, and who are you? Who is this podcast for? What are you aiming, or who do you want to listen to this podcast? Because, like you said earlier, how we have so many people reviewing technology and
Mm-hmm.
all these kinds of things. Their target audience is probably like sort of a younger age, maybe,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
maybe like somewhere in the teens or somewhere. So
Yeah.
or what age group do you want or are you aiming for this podcast?
Listen, I think as I said before, everyone I know today has a smartphone. This is really not targeted for any particular people. It is not for the young. It is not for the grown up. It's not for the old only. It is for every single person. And again, the target market is everyone. Now, who is it for? The thing is, many or most people actually know me as a Hindu priest. I'm a Hindu, practicing Hindu. I've lived and breathed my dharma, my religion, my tradition, my culture all the time. And the intent of this podcast is to actually shed light to our ancient practices and show how applicable it is to the modern times we live in. Many people, including our young people, I think, have an understanding that practicing Hinduism or practicing our culture or tradition or whatever we call it, is for when you get old, and that is not so. So I'm going to be targeting the young, the grown up, the seniors, everyone, to allow them to understand that as ancient as our tradition is and our practices are, it is applicable to the time that we live in. Now, worshiping, as we know, is very detailed in our tradition, and someone may say that it takes a certain level of understanding to know that. There's a lot of misunderstanding out there. My goal in this whole process is to simplify that. It's to simplify our understanding and the way we dress, and the way we do things, and the way we make an offering, and the way we present our culture. And so in doing that, it is going to be targeted pretty much to our young children, because they have access to technology as well. Hey, you know this, when a kid has a device in their hand, what do you think they use it for most of the time?
I mean, mostly it's probably social media, because there's nothing else really that you can do.
What about games? They play a lot of games.
Play out
too,
a lot
right?
of games, social media, all kind of stuff that's not really work related.
Correct. And you would see them having a phone. I mean, a cell phone is given to a child for emergency these days when they go to school. I don't think they use it a lot for emergencies, though.
Not really, no, because
Right.
they're on it all the time during school. They're going on social media and all these kind of things.
Right. So why not, and I mean, I don't want to target the kids or anything, but I think why not allow them to use that time that they're investing, to play games, and they must play games, but why not allow them to actually invest that time in doing something constructive?
So you have like a nice balance between the two.
Absolutely. I mean, they can play a little games or do whatever they do to get some kind of enjoyment. But part of our discussion would be how you can enhance your life as a child, because part of the process of growing up is building a solid foundation, and traditions allow you to do that. So the target here will definitely be the child who uses a device, but uses it to do more of a recreational, more of a gaming aspect. It is for them to use it to do something a little bit more constructive.
So my third question for you is, what topics are you planning to cover in this podcast? And what message are you trying to bring to people who are listening to this podcast? What do you want them to really take away? And what message are you trying to bring to them?
Yeah, so the topics would include anything to do with life in general, right? As I've always taught others, my job as a priest, or my job as a leader, is to simplify the complex things in our tradition for people. I think that intelligence today is sometimes measured when somebody added a level of complexity to something that is very simple, right? Someone may say, "Oh, that's smart," right? And I don't think that's smart. If you're going to take something very simple and add 4 layers of complexity over it, that's not smart.
You're just making it more complicated and more
Absolutely.
harder for other people to accomplish it.
Right. Whereas intelligence was supposed to be taking something complex or something difficult
And to
then
make it more simple so that everyone can understand it.
Absolutely. So the whole point of this exercise is to cover topics that are truly misunderstood, from worship to to prayers, to dressing, to speaking, to greetings, and just philosophy, going inward as a Hindu. What we as Hindus have been practicing for centuries. I mean, since the beginning of time. The West is today discovering it, which means they're pretty much talking about going within now. You hear that all the time.
Yeah.
Going inside and finding what's inside of you. I mean, we had that, since the churning of the ocean, when the Milky Ocean, when they were churning for all kinds of things, and nectar came out and poison came out and everything else came out. So what the West is now discovering, we have always known. The topics will include philosophy, traditions, exploring our religion and really simplifying it and letting others understand that there is nothing complex about what we're doing.
It's kind of like how also how you told me about how the West is now discovering things. It's kind of like how you can tell people about our Hindu traditions, and then how people say, "Oh, that's not true. There's no proof of it." But only when the West finds out about it, only when it shows up on the news, on whatever, on like your TV or something, only then is when we believe it.
Absolutely. As I always say, when the West puts a stamp on it, then is when we accept it. And that shouldn't be so, because, it's like yoga, for example.
Yeah.
Like yoga today, unless somebody teaches you yoga who's from who's from the West, it is not acceptable by many, right? Right here in Toronto, in Brampton area, in Canada, many parts of the world, most yoga studios are run by those who are not of Indian origin, and it is attended by those who are of Indian origin. And it's not a racist comment or a racist approach or anything. It's just that we only buy into something mostly when the West puts a stamp on it. And that shouldn't be so, because we're already genuine, we're already strong, we have substance behind everything we're doing. So the whole point of this show, this podcast, is to show us the value of the things that already are valuable.
Is this podcast limited to only Hindus, or is it, I guess, is it available to, excuse me, or is it available to like any other religion? Is this podcast only going to have information that's only limited to people that are Hindu? Because I know that, because we practice Sanatan Dharma, so is this podcast only going to be limited to Hindus, or are you going to be covering topics that are more open to society and so that everyone can embrace and apply to their everyday lives?
It's an amazing question, and here's what it is. Our practices as Hindus are not only limited to Hindus, right? And I've always, like, our tradition is called Sanatan Dharma, which means it's eternal, and it means it's unfounded. Whatever we do as Hindus, whatever practices we do as Hindus, are not only limited to Hindu. What makes a person a Hindu is certainly not the way we dress. It's certainly not the way we look. It's the way we carry ourselves. It's the way we practice. This podcast is not going to be limited to only Hindus. Anyone who actually tunes into our podcasting, they will be having an understanding about, the contribution that Hinduism has made to the world, and how can we take that contribution and apply it to our lives. And I mean, in one of my YouTube videos, I talked about recycling. When we recycle the flowers, the garlands and everything. So recycling is what the world is embracing as green today, was a practice of the Hindus, when the world was created. We eat green, we dispose green and all that. So it is certainly not only limited to Hindus, it is for everyone, because the Hindu message is a universal message. It is about peace, it is about recycling, it's about green, it is about, bliss. And those are things that we have all in common as human beings.
All right, thanks. That was a topic that I really wanted to, I guess, be covered, because is because I don't know because people wouldn't want this podcast only to be limited to Hindus, because education isn't something that is limited to a certain race or a certain culture. It's for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And definitely, as I said, our teachings are universal.
Okay, so my next question for you is, what is going to be the format of this podcast? Meaning, like, how is it going to work? Or are you going to have other guests come on? Are you going to have them talk about their experiences, or maybe answer their questions? How is this podcast really going to, I guess, work? And how is it going to function?
I think we will start off with a very humble beginning first. We're starting off today, which is called Akshaya Tritiya. It is April 25th, 2020, for the records. So it's an auspicious day for Hindus and for me, and so it's going to start out very humble. I will address topics on my own based on my researches and all that, I think definitely there is an appetite for bringing on guests on the show. I think what adds a lot of value is when we have a discussion, right? Discussions are always. I like discussions. I like discussions when not only when we agree on things, but when we disagree, because that is when more light is shedded on the other side of the discussions. The format, the intended format is, start off with initial discussions, individual discussions with myself, and then bringing on people who are familiar with, like community leaders, for example. I have in mind so many charitable workers, people who really go out and help in the communities, experts, when we're discussing anything scientific and how we want to talk about Hinduism as it relates to science. So definitely have an appetite for lots of guests to be in the show. In terms of the frequency, we'll do as many as possible. I intend to put up at least 2 podcasts per week, which, the minute you go silent, people lose interest. So I think minimum 2 podcasts per week. We want to make it a very simple approach, and at the same time, make it easy to do on our side.
All right. And how long will these discussions be? Because we all know we're all staying home right now because of the pandemic, and we're all in quarantine. But still, people are working from home. They're very busy. I know you're very busy during the day, on phone calls all day. So how long are these discussions going to be? Are they going to be long? And are they going to be, I guess, cut up in segments so that people can watch it on their own time? And how is it going to work? Because we kind of want to fit in people's everyday schedules.
Yeah. There's a number of reasons there is a number of factors that will actually drive how long these discussions will occur. One of it is, the attention span of people. A lot of people, most people are going to be listening to a voice, right? How long can you listen to a voice without looking to a video or a picture? So this is going to be posted on YouTube as well, and the video will actually be posted on YouTube, and the audio will be posted on Spotify and other channels. The length of the program will be anywhere between half an hour and an hour, sometimes over, depending if we have guests. If we have multiple guests and all that, and the topic is interesting, it will actually go for an hour. I believe certain aspects of our discussion will require an in-depth analysis of things, and the more we go in deep and we try to simplify something complex, it takes some time. But I think to answer your question, it will be between 30 minutes and an hour.
All right. And where else can people access this podcast? Because we know that there are so many different platforms, so many different streaming services, you can call it, such as like this video is going to go on YouTube, and there's also going to be Spotify. But where else are there other ways that people can access this, I guess, podcast?
No, for now, it's going to be mostly on Spotify and YouTube. We're starting very basic, very humble. Those Spotify, anybody can download Spotify actually for free on their smartphone and any mobile devices. And then YouTube, it will be there. So we're keeping it simple for now. And then as we expand, we're going to think about other channels that is more accessible for others.
All right. And how do you intend on reaching out to people, I guess, through this podcast? Because we're all staying indoors and we can't really go out and really meet people.
Yeah.
So how do you intend on reaching out to people who maybe have some questions, who maybe want to be on this podcast? How do you intend on reaching out to them, answering their questions?
Yeah. So we're going to start, I believe that anything we do from where we came from as West Indian people and Indians in general, everything starts with family.
Yeah.
Family. We start building our family with family. We start expanding our homes. We all help each other. And my hope with this is to start with family and friends first. Our community is pretty connected. As you know, we have quite a bit of following on social media, Facebook, and some on YouTube. But I intend to use social media as a way to get the word out. Then on friends and family as well, it always is comforting when any new humble venture is supported by friends and family. The intent of this is not to sell it to anybody, but to make it, create a sense of awareness to people that it exists. So word of mouth, friends and family, social media, and then from there we expand through subscriptions and other means.
All right. And how often will you be uploading these podcasts? And because maybe as this podcast, if it will start to grow, people want to listen more often. So I guess how many will you have per week?
I think we touched on that earlier. It's going to be
yeah.
like about two minimum per week, and then we see how it grows. And I think what COVID has allowed us all to do is to have the ability to stay home and to do all of our work. So minimum 2 per week now. As we expand, we'll take it from there.
All right, and my last question for you is a bit of a curveball. Where do you see yourself and this podcast in the future, and what are your future goals?
Oh man, you make me feel like I'm sitting into an interview. I hope you're not going to ask me what is your strength and what is your
No, none of that.
your weakness. So the intent obviously is whatever I do, it must be done with a couple of things. It must be done first with class. It has to be classy. Although this first podcast is a very humble, simple video that we're doing and recording, but
we're still in the experimental stage.
yes, we're still discovering what to use, what not to use, where to sit, and this was just put together because I wanted really to start something today. Where do I see this going? Anything we do, we have to really do it with an intent that it will become big and it will spread. But more so, it will add value. I intend for this to add value to people's lives. And it will only become bigger, it will only spread, it will only become popular or, many people signing on if it adds value to their life. If they like what they're hearing, then, there will be a demand for it. My intent is for it to become as big as possible. So that it reaches people, but more so it makes a difference in their life. And it's about reaching people in different parts of the world because it's not only for those in Toronto or Canada, it's for wherever they can log into, they do it. So to grow, to spread, but more so to inspire people and to change them.
So yeah, thank you for answering these questions. And for those who are watching or listening, this podcast is going to be more of a casual, I guess, more of a discussion, because as you know, we're having our daily Shanti Satsang live streams on Facebook, and those are around like 2 hours long. So for those, the purpose of this podcast, I guess, is to have like a more casual discussion so that we can really break down certain topics that are really being misunderstood and that we can answer in a casual and a very simple way.
Absolutely. And just to give people some sort of context as to what we're doing as well, we have a family team. We have you on the technical side. I mean, you work on the technical side. We have Akash as well
he's a sound guy.
He's a sound guy. Making sure we we sound well. Then we have the girls. They're going to be more in the research and development team. We want feedback from people as to what do you think are topics we should discuss. People want to talk about funerals. They want to talk about so many things as Hindus as we practice. So they're going to be involved in the research and development part, and we'll create mediums for you to provide this kind of feedback to us. Then we create schedules and interviewers and all that to come in. So it's going to be well organized internally, just to pique the interest of people and to keep you involved in the process. So please, sign up or whatever you do to get the access to the podcast. You can actually go on my my YouTube link and subscribe, Hardat Ashwar. I'm also on Facebook as Hardat Ashwar, and on our temple's Facebook page as well to get regular updates of what's coming. Awesome. Well, nice chatting, everyone. Thanks, Bhuvan, for being here and our first chat together.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and hope you all enjoyed. Stay blessed, everyone. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.